No, because here's how you know, like, leftists just want to get on their fucking high horse and speak down to everybody. And therefore, a lot of work that's being done in leftist spaces that's also being broadcast on TikTok is not genuine. Because tell me why all of these influencers who have 100,000 plus followers who were pushing their anti-Kamala stance pre-election, tell me why all of them are community organizers in New York City. I assumed a lot of them lived in, like, blue states. A lot of them just straight up live in New York City, dude. First of all, I don't want to fucking hear a word about your community organizing, because most of you are not community organizers. You're volunteers. You work with the person that community organized. You show up to their events. That's what I do. But so many of you are more concerned with what you can proclaim and how you can use it to lord it over others on the internet, which is why you continuously hype yourself up without actually doing that work. Second of all, as somebody who lived in New York City and is a New Yorker born and raised, you cannot fucking compare that kind of ability to access community outreach to any other place in the United States. People are like, I'm a community organizer, and then post pictures of them going to events that were set up by other people with numerous booths. It's an event in New York City. It's a literal hub for those kinds of things. And the audacity to sit there and pretend that the community outreach programs that you can access in New York fucking City are the same as literally anywhere else, but especially in deeply impoverished rural towns. Are you? Oh my God. We're getting to the point where people who live in New York City can afford to live in New York City, post content from New York City. I swear to God, they should be stripped of their ability to make political content. You guys are so fucking worried about outright Trump influencers and MAGA influencers and right-wing influencers. Do you know how fucking dangerous it is to get on this app, sitting in one of the progressive hubs that has been around since, like, the inception of the United States, to sit there and say, not only to falsely claim that you yourself are the community organizer, because fuck you, but to sit there and convince people that community organizing would be as accessible anywhere else as it is in Manhattan? That's fucking dangerous. And those are the people that were sitting in their fucking apartments telling people not to vote. There's quite a few of them, but for example, someone like Peter Lolo, who really kickstarted this whole anti-voting and publicizing that campaign while they live in New York City. Despicable. One thing that really kills me is it's so fucking obvious that these people can't walk the walk. So many of these influencers who are spreading harmful rhetoric from their apartments in New York City and then preaching community organization as the, like, catch-all answer to anything that could happen under a Trump presidency, right? Why are you all still on TikTok just making individual videos? There's a bunch of you leftist content creators that live in New York City with hundreds of thousands to millions of followers. And you can't even fucking socialize with each other? You can't even fucking organize with each other? If you're a political content creator that lives in New York City and wants to preach community organization, but you can't even bring yourself to talk to other content creators that live in that city and have the same widespread access as you, what the fuck are you doing? So, like, go. Stop talking about politics on fucking TikTok and go fucking organize like you promised. Because remember, most of them have stable jobs and have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok and can afford to live in Manhattan. I have 17 to 18,000 followers. I make $2,000 a month. These leftist content creators that have hundreds of thousands of followers are making a disgusting amount of fucking money and spending it on exorbitant rent in a gentrified New York City. They cared really hard about community organizing until they started making upwards of $100,000 a year. Now they just moved into a bigger apartment and can't be bothered to redistribute that wealth. They're all community organizers, yet can't even be bothered to meet up with another New York City-based leftist content creator. A bunch of them have gone quiet and they're barely making videos right now, and the ones that are, you can see it in their fucking eyes that they know what they did. Quite frankly, they don't deserve to ever be able to look at themselves in the mirror again without seeing the pain that they caused from their little apartment in Manhattan, making $100,000 at least, bare minimum, a year. Community organizers, my ass. They're doing brand deals across their social media and pocketing all of the money, moving into bigger apartments. And now these New York City-based content creators can't even be bothered to meet up in person to organize like they promised. A lot of them aren't posting because you can just see it in their eyes, and they don't want to give you that satisfaction. I actually think Hasan is a great example of the overall problem in leftist spaces and how male-centered and male-catered they are. Because tell me why people like him have been actively blaming the Democrats for trying to appeal to moderate voters and claiming that that's a problem and that makes them borderline fascist. But now Hasan himself is on podcasts saying that the alt-right is just way better at appealing to young white men, and therefore Democrats actually need to shift their focus and learn how to appeal to young men, especially young white men. Okay, so appealing to moderate voters makes you a fascist, but trying super hard to appeal to literal young white supremacists, that's okay? Aside from the just fucking logic, not logicking there, that's a fucking insane sentiment coming from somebody who has been so vocal about how we need to dismantle all of these systems and not cater to the people who are perpetuating them. But if he can blame the Democrats, now he'll actually side with the young white supremacists. Hasan has always had a problem of just constantly being self-centered, in my opinion. Like the way he only really ever refers to things like sex work and being sex work positive when he talks about how he sleeps with sex workers and when he slept with sex workers. For me, I knew all I needed to know back when Hasan, who is somebody who openly preaches about wealth redistribution, bought a $3 million mansion in LA. And instead of questioning it, people defended him and he defended himself. And I'm not doing this. There is zero excuse to buy a $3 million mansion. There's zero excuse to buy a $3 million house. If he needed to live in LA, he could have either bought a different house that didn't cost that, or he could have rented. He didn't need to drop $3 million, especially not somebody who preaches wealth redistribution. I guess everybody else should redistribute their wealth, but not him. I also don't think these people understand what wealth redistribution is, because they're making millions of fucking dollars a year, and I don't see them redistributing their wealth at all. I see them upgrading their houses. I see them upgrading their cars. I see them upgrading their podcasting locations. I see them wearing nicer clothes. I don't see them redistributing that wealth. He's a talking fucking head that doesn't back half of that shit up. And I also genuinely, in my opinion, believe he has some serious misogyny that he needs to unpack. Imagine actually typing out the words, "I'm calling you a name." Yeah, I know. I don't care, babe. I have an actual argument. That's why I don't need to act like a 4-year-old. That's why I don't need to stomp my feet and call people names. I can just make my argument. Grown men like you are so fucking funny, because you just admit out loud that you're that immature and genuinely don't say it. And it's so fucking funny that you left this in defense of Hasan Piker. You can call me a liberal all you want. You're a misogynist, and you're fucking weird for talking to people like that. I hope things get better, or you gain a little bit of self-awareness. Imagine literally typing out admitting to name-calling. It's so pathetic. Guys, this leftist that thinks I'm a fascist for voting for Kamala Harris is at his soup kitchen right now, doing the community work, but still leaving me dozens of comments a minute. Sounds like you're really putting in the work, not just definitely standing there on your phone watching everybody else do the work. What a fucking hilarious parallel, babe. I think generally the worst crowd right now is those who are spreading anti-voting rhetoric, but are now preaching that the left can't be divided. People are allowed to not want to work with you. People are allowed to not want to be in community with you. You are not the end-all be-all. You do not get to make that decision publicly, and then force everybody to react the way you want. People are allowed to react to your decisions how they see fit. And if you spread anti-voting rhetoric from your apartment in New York City while people begged you not to because they told you how dangerous it would be, They're not the ones dividing the left when they don't want to work with you. You did that, and you were okay with that division pre-election when you were the one making that decision. But now that you're the one being held at an arm's length, you're upset and want to force people to work with you. No. You're so fucking concerned with the fact that liberals don't want to work with internet leftists that pushed harmful rhetoric pre-election, while ignoring the fact that all people who no longer want to work with you made that very clear, that if you made that decision, it was your full right to, but they no longer wanted to be in community with you and they no longer viewed you as a safe person. Leftists made it very clear that if they weren't voting for Kamala Harris, or they were preaching a third-party vote, it was to send a message. That message was to take votes away from Kamala Harris. That was an act of division. You don't get to fucking preach unity now. P.S. If you acted hostile towards those who publicized they were voting for Kamala Harris, you're the fucking division. You don't get to behave like that and get pissed when people cut you out. It was never about community. It's about finding a way to center yourself. If you use the word liberal or Democrat as a derogatory term at any point in the last year, you do not get a say on left-leaning unity. You literally mocked other people on the left, called them names, and the names you called them were left-leaning identities you used in a derogatory way. So first of all, the second you called somebody on the left a name, you were the one that divided that relationship. Unless you're gonna fucking apologize to them, they don't owe you anything, especially not unity. Second of all, why would anyone who is a Democrat or is a liberal ever want to work with you? You sat there and used their left-leaning political identity as a derogatory term and way to call somebody a nasty name for the past year. You called Democrats and anyone who is voting for Kamala Harris blue MAGA. You did all of these things to other people who are on the left, and now you want to bitch and moan about unity on the left? Fuck you. Exactly, and that's what's so fucking mind-blowing. These internet leftists didn't give a fuck about left-leaning division until they were the ones that were being pushed out. The same people that have been using the words Democrat and liberal as derogatory terms all year long. Those are the people that are all of the sudden concerned about blue unity, that everyone on the left stays solid and can't be divided. Really? Really? Because up until this point in time, you were saying that you wouldn't work with anybody, even if they were on the left, if they didn't perfectly align with what you believe. Hence the reason a lot of them didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Hence the reason a bunch of them were consistently railing against Kamala Harris more so than Donald Trump. These are the people that all of a sudden care about left-leaning unity. First of all, no fucking Democrat or liberal wants anything to do with anybody who is using their political identity as a misnomer and a derogatory term. Because as much as you guys like calling people Democrats and liberals as an insult, there are people who identify as Democrats and as liberals. And if you really cared about unity, you wouldn't be degrading them, you'd be trying to work with them. But that's the thing, it's not about unity. It's about them wanting to be centered in everything. Because if they have to work with someone they disagree with, fuck unity. If they have to work with someone they deem as less progressive as them, fuck unity. But if they're the ones being rejected, all of a sudden, pro-solidarity, pro-fucking unity. How about y'all go through your fucking temper tantrums in private? Boy, you just said the quiet part out fucking loud. I said I have an issue with how clearly Hassan has a problem with misogyny, and he has not unpacked that. And you said Hassan is right. I'm a young dude and I enjoy his type of content. Not all young dudes are red-pilled weirdos. Sir, I made a video talking about the issue with misogyny in his takes and the way he speaks about things. And you said, yeah, that's what I like about him. And because I like that about him, I'm not a red-pilled weirdo. This is an internet leftist talking about Trump winning the election. LOL, in 40 years, there's going to be so much greater evils in the world that will make this election a footnote. If you were somebody who was getting deported and having your family torn apart, it would fucking matter in 40 years. If you were a woman with an ectopic pregnancy that couldn't get access to abortion and it killed her, it would matter to everyone that knew her for 40 fucking years. If you were somebody that didn't want to be a mom and couldn't get access to an abortion, that's going to matter in 40 years to both the mom and the kid. Right, and since Trump has openly told us that he's putting RFK Jr. as, like, the head of the health departments in our country, in 40 years when people are grieving massive losses from the next 4 pandemics that wipe through this country, while our head of health is actively spreading anti-vax misinformation and not helping anybody in any actual way, to all those people and their families, it will still fucking matter. How fucking dare you? What a privilege it is to be able to look at those election results and think that they will not matter in the long run, to think that they will not affect you in the long run. What a fucking privilege. And you better look up into that sky tonight and say thank you for the pure luck that you were born in the body you were born in. Thanks for outwardly stating that you just do not care. If you're about to be executed and you make a joke, that's gallows humor. If you're standing in the audience and you make a joke, you're just a part of the execution. You as a white, cis man got into my comments section and said that the outcome of this election won't matter in 40 years. LOL. You are a part of the execution. It's not fucking gallows humor. You're a servant of the executioner. You know that sound that's like, there's not going to be a swimming pool, you stupid slut. There won't even be a house. That's literally how I feel right now. Like, I've literally had people comment, it's good that Kamala lost because that will push the DNC further left and they'll be less genocidal in the future. If there's a DNC, Donald Trump just straight up told us all that he was getting rid of that shit. They're like, oh, well, you know, this was going to push the Democrats further left. So maybe, just maybe they'll win my vote in 2028. Maybe if there's an election in 2028, we'd be lucky to have a fucking election and just have a Republican win at that point. Because Donald Trump said he's putting an end to all of that. He's not leaving. And you better fucking hope that he doesn't kick the bucket, because I think J.D. Vance might somehow be fucking worse. 2-for-1 specials only, by the way. Y'all were so focused on the swimming pool. They're demolishing the house. Just go swim in the puddle where the tub used to be. If I see one more fucking white internet leftist refer to themselves as a marginalized group, oh my fucking God. When people talk about the harmful rhetoric that was spread by internet leftists online prior to the election, you don't get to use the shield of you're blaming marginalized people. No, I'm fucking blaming you, a cis white woman. So first of all, internet leftists are not some marginalized fucking group. Second of all, if you're a white person and someone's calling you out for your actions as a white person, you don't get to say, well, actually a marginalized person, someone who is part of a marginalized group, did the same thing as me, so actually your criticism's invalid. Mind your fucking manners and mind your fucking self. You don't get to use marginalized people as a shield. You are a cis white person. Your actions are your own. In no fucking world are you the marginalized group here. Not people who are advocating against voting for Kamala Harris, consistently criticizing Kamala Harris, now being surprised that after Trump won, people are putting congressmen like Gavin Newsom on a fucking pedestal. Of course they are. That was exactly what was gonna fucking happen, and everybody told you that. How do you get on this app and act confused that this is happening and then pretend that you're some kind of political commentator? Anybody who is now scared of Trump is going to start putting any politician that's willing to actively fight him or is even seemingly slightly less fascist than him on a pedestal. I know you all thought that criticizing Kamala and putting Trump in office was somehow going to push people further left. It's not. And everybody fucking told you that. And how you can now get on this app and think that you're educated in politics and act completely confused at why people are now putting Gavin Newsom on a fucking pedestal is insane. Buckle up. We all fucking told you this is exactly what was gonna happen. That Trump winning wasn't gonna push the Democrats left. It's gonna push the entire country fucking right. You have effectively destroyed the Democratic Party. There will not be one. You guys are broadcasting your fucking ignorance. And half of you have bios that say, you don't need to educate me. I know everything already. If you know everything, why the fuck are you so shocked at the simple fact that post a Trump win, people are now going to start putting anybody who's in the center on a fucking pedestal because compared to Trump, they're a good person. We all fucking told you this was going to happen. Any political commentator that's now all of a sudden surprised by anything that's happening right now, unfollow them because they have no fucking idea what they were talking about. And if they're spewing all of this confusion while living in New York City, they're a bad fucking person. Yeah, and under a Trump presidency, that shit is going to get astronomically worse. I'm not really sure what these people were on that they thought putting a fascist in office was going to push the people further left. Putting a fascist in office is not going to do anything other than push people to find ways to protect themselves. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but those same people are constantly haranguing US culture for being so individualistic. So in a time where people are currently so individualistic, in a culture that is so individualistic, where you've now put a fascist into office, where he's threatening to strip rights and attack a bunch of different groups of people. I'm not really sure what made them think in our current hyper-individualistic society that that was going to make people come together, because it's not. It's going to further divide us. You had to solve the individualism problem in our culture way before you could put a fascist in office and believe it would improve anything. In our country, when people are under threat, most Americans choose time and time again not to look outward, but to look inward, to find ways to protect themselves and only themselves. Not ways to protect a community they're even a part of, or, God forbid, to protect other communities. They're hyper-focused on, how do I save myself? And they don't see myself as a part of that community, which is why most people don't even care how things affect a community they're technically a part of. Trump winning is incredibly bad. Also notice how none of them will come on here and say that it's bad. They're just saying it's not as bad as you think. Okay. But, so everyone here, right, we have common sense. We know a Trump presidency is fucking bad, right? And a lot of people are really fucking scared right now. So the first thing a lot of governors and representatives did in blue states was make announcements talking about how they're going to protect the people of their state against Trump. And you can argue whether it's genuine or disingenuous all you fucking want. But the point is, while these people are scared, their elected official told them, I'm gonna protect you from that big bad man. That's already enough for this stuff to start coming back around. And once Trump takes office and these legal battles and all of this kinds of stuff actually start unfolding, it's going to get worse, right? If Governor Newsom protects the people of California from even one of Trump's sweeping legislations, the people of California are going to revere him. And if he's the one that's going to be the only thing standing between the people of California protecting them from Trump, they're of course going to view him as a hero. Putting Trump in office is not going to push anything further left. That's a fucking joke, and a bad one. All a Trump presidency did was give these politicians that we all hate a universal bad guy to fight, which inherently in that fight makes them, to the public, the good guy. Not people who are advocating against voting for Kamala Harris, consistently criticizing Kamala Harris, now being surprised that after Trump won, people are putting congressmen like Gavin Newsom on a fucking pedestal. Of course they are. That was exactly what was gonna fucking happen, and everybody told you that. How do you get on this app and act confused that this is happening and then pretend that you're some kind of political commentator? Anybody who is now scared of Trump is going to start putting any politician that's willing to actively fight him or is even seemingly slightly less fascist than him on a pedestal. I know you all thought that criticizing Kamala and putting Trump in office was somehow going to push people further left. It's not. And everybody fucking told you that. And how you can now get on this app and think that you're educated in politics and act completely confused at why people are now putting Gavin Newsom on a fucking pedestal is insane. Buckle up. We all fucking told you this is exactly what was gonna happen. That Trump winning wasn't gonna push the Democrats left. It's gonna push the entire country fucking right. You have effectively destroyed the Democratic Party. There will not be one. You guys are broadcasting your fucking ignorance. And half of you have bios that say, you don't need to educate me. I know everything already. If you know everything, why the fuck are you so shocked at the simple fact that post a Trump win, people are now gonna start putting anybody who's in the center on a fucking pedestal because compared to Trump, they're a good person. We all fucking told you this was gonna happen. Any political commentator that's now all of a sudden surprised by anything that's happening right now, unfollow them because they have no fucking idea what they were talking about. And if they're spewing all of this confusion while living in New York City, they're a bad fucking person. Yeah, and under a Trump presidency, that shit is going to get astronomically worse. I'm not really sure what these people were on that they thought putting a fascist in office was going to push the people further left. Putting a fascist in office is not going to do anything other than push people to find ways to protect themselves. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but those same people are constantly haranguing US culture for being so individualistic. So in a time where people are currently so individualistic, in a culture that is so individualistic, where you've now put a fascist into office, where he's threatening to strip rights and attack a bunch of different groups of people, I'm not really sure what made them think in our current hyper-individualistic society that that was going to make people come together, because it's not. It's going to further divide us. You had to solve the individualism problem in our culture way before you could put a fascist in office and believe it would improve anything. In our country, when people are under threat, most Americans choose time and time again not to look outward, but to look inward, to find ways to protect themselves and only themselves. Not ways to protect a community they're even a part of, or, God forbid, to protect other communities. They're hyper-focused on, how do I save myself? And they don't see myself as a part of that community, which is why most people don't even care how things affect a community they're technically a part of. Trump winning is incredibly bad. Also notice how none of them will come on here and say that it's bad. They're just saying it's not as bad as you think. Okay. But, so everyone here, right, we have common sense. We know a Trump presidency is fucking bad, right? And a lot of people are really fucking scared right now. So the first thing a lot of governors and representatives did in blue states was make announcements talking about how They're going to protect the people of their state against Trump. And you can argue whether it's genuine or disingenuous all you fucking want. But the point is, while these people are scared, their elected official told them, I'm going to protect you from that big bad man. That's already enough for this stuff to start coming back around. And once Trump takes office and these legal battles and all of this kinds of stuff actually start unfolding, it's going to get worse, right? If Governor Newsom protects the people of California from even one of Trump's sweeping legislations, the people of California are going to revere him. And if he's the one that's going to be the only thing standing between the people of California protecting them from Trump, they're of course going to view him as a hero. Putting Trump in office is not going to push anything further left. That's a fucking joke, and a bad one. All a Trump presidency did was give these politicians that we all hate a universal bad guy to fight, which inherently in that fight makes them, to the public, the good guy. Too many people on this app do not understand that this is an app. This is an app that is tailored to your experience. It is not at all a representation of the majority of people. People assume because every TikTok video they see is from another progressive or leftist person that a majority of people are leftist, are progressive. Your TikTok For You page is not at all a representation of the majority of anything. It is not a representation of how the majority of people in your country think. It is not a representation of how the majority of people in your demographic think. It is not a representation of even how a majority of people in your community think. People think because every video they see, everything they interact with is some version of a left-leaning belief that a majority of Americans are left-leaning. No, your TikTok For You page is left-leaning because you are left-leaning. And then it's going to get even more specific than that about where you fall on certain issues on the left and how you vote on certain issues on the left, whether you're Democratic, liberal, progressive, etc. All of those people on the left are going to still be seeing hyper different content on their For You page, despite it all technically being left-leaning content. And all of the facts are there, but so many people are just not putting them together. You can't genuinely believe that the answer to all of the Democratic Party's problems is to go further left and more progressive if you also understand that we have a severe problem with young men and their beliefs in this country, specifically young white men. Those two things cannot reasonably coexist. It's the problem of everybody just wants there to be a simple, easy solution, just a single one-word answer, and the fact that people are genuinely not aware of the fact that they are being brainwashed to a degree. And I don't mean brainwashed into believing anything other than everybody thinks exactly like you, that you are the moral center and that you are the majority now. Too many of these people completely base their political commentary solely off of what they see on TikTok, what other people are saying on TikTok. Except they're also not searching it out. They're seeing what people are saying who are popping up on their For You page. Do you see how this is just a fucking snake that eats itself? Algorithms have always been a problem, but a lot of people do not understand what these algorithms are tracking and watching at this point in time and how advanced they are. TikTok is not just monitoring how long you spend on each video, what you like, what you dislike. Have you ever used your camera on TikTok? Yeah, it's monitoring your eyes, it's tracking your eye movement, it's seeing what you're paying attention to, if you've walked away from your screen, if you're actually there engaging. It has AI that's not just seeing that you comment, it's reading your comments and then picking out keywords and suggesting you videos based off of the words you then commented. If you have not specifically asked the app not to, it's tracking everything you do once you leave the app, the kind of content you engage with on Instagram, the kind of things you Google. The algorithm is more aware of the content that you are digesting than your conscious mind is. I would argue this algorithm knows more about our minds than our own conscious mind does. It's more on par with, at this point, our subconscious mind. To take anything you see on TikTok as some kind of representation of the majority is dangerous, and it is damaging to your own ability to critically think and interact with the world around you. TikTok is a great source for information because there's so many people on it. I'm not saying not to get it from there, but what you're supposed to do is get the nugget of information here and then go look it up. Go do the work yourself. Stop taking what everybody says at face value. Stop taking what everyone says as a representation of the majority. Your TikTok For You page is an echo chamber that represents nothing more than content that keeps you engaged. I'm sure you guys can't understand the point I'm making because it's logically sound and your logic is nowhere to be found. You cannot make the argument that Democrats trying to appeal to moderate voters makes them conservatives, makes them basically Republicans, and then in the same breath say the Democrats need to make a better attempt at appealing to specifically young white men who are drawn to content that puts them into the alt-right pipeline. You cannot in the same fucking breath make the argument that appealing to moderate voters basically makes you a Republican and then turn around and say that the Democratic Party specifically needs to be better at extending an olive branch specifically to young white men because when they don't do it, they fall down alt-right pipelines and become white supremacists. Catering to somebody who's already wanting to become a white supremacist is okay and makes the Democratic Party further left and more progressive, but trying to court moderate voters makes them fascist. No, I'm saying you can't, those are literally mutually exclusive. If catering to more conservative people makes you a more conservative organization, which it does, trying to cater to young men who are seeking out alt-right pipelines and white supremacy Reddit threads also makes you more conservative, not more progressive. Notice how Hassan didn't say the problem is white supremacy. It's the fault of the Democrats for somehow not courting young white men out of becoming white supremacists. And just so we're clear with the misogyny thing, Hassan Piker has no fucking problem going after white women who fall down those pipelines, as we should call out. But the second it's talking about young white men who fall into those pipelines, it's the Democrats need to find a way to save them before they do that. Right, but when it's young white men going down that pipeline, it's not their fault. The Democrats need to find a way to save them before they make that decision. That it's just, they feel excluded from the left because they're young white men. They feel alienated, and we need to find a way to save them before the white supremacists take a hold of them. My issue is you can't have your fucking cake and eat it too. The logic doesn't follow through. And Hassan Piker isn't blaming white supremacy or these young white men for actively seeking out alt-right spaces. He's blaming the Democrats for not finding a way to appeal to them that would save them from seeking out those alt-right spaces. Fuck you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Exactly. In the same breath, Hassan Piker will say that the Democrats lost because they're getting too conservative, while also saying they're too woke for not centering young white men in their rhetoric, and they need to do better at it. And none of these people see any flaw in that line of logic. This is what I mean when I say people are really good at having individual thoughts and really bad at putting them together to form a cohesive philosophy. Hassan said that the Democrats are both far too conservative, but also are too woke to appeal to the young white men who are getting pulled down the alt-right pipeline, and they need to do better at intercepting those men by welcoming them into the party and being better at extending an olive branch to them, which I'm not even going to get into right now how misogynistic it is to assume that not centering men in conversations is inherently alienating them. That should tell you everything in my eyes that you need to know about Hassan Piker. That if men's voices aren't being centered, they're inherently being alienated. That's a take, and it's not okay to excuse that misogyny just because he is on the left. Alright, guys, this is it. This is the make or break moment for the left when it comes to nuance. This is the moment where either we're gonna come out paying attention to all of the facts and reckoning those with our feelings, or we're gonna ignore the facts that we don't want. We're gonna take facts that have nothing to do with the situation and draw lines to the situation, and we're gonna spiral down that QAnon conspiracy theory route. The only thing that's gonna save a bunch of people on the left from spiraling down those same rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and that divorce of fact is going to be how we interact with everything right now with nuance. You are allowed to feel however you want about this election. You cannot get on this app and tell people for sure that this election has been tampered with. You cannot tell people for sure that the election was a fraud and that it's not legitimate. You are allowed to ask questions, but only if those are true questions where you are willing to accept what the true fact of the answer is. Not if you're just asking questions to try and muddy the water. Not if you're only posing a question to get the answer that you want in return. Now is a time to listen to anecdotes, but not to assume that an anecdote represents a majority. There are legitimate questions to be raised. There are legitimate conversations to be had. My main question and concern is regarding the transparency of Starlink and how they processed everything, and how transparent that process was to the government. Because yes, it's incredibly concerning that someone like Elon Musk has that amount of power. That being said, none of us are aware, that I've seen, of what rules and regulations are in place. Maybe there were none. That's why we need to ask the question. But maybe there were a lot of regulations around it. Maybe everything was being monitored through the government. Maybe it was completely transparent. Posing questions is okay if it's a genuine question, if it's a genuine inquiry. It's not a genuine inquiry if you're only willing to accept a single answer. Just please be wary of what you say and how you pose it when you post online. Because times like these are what turn people into conspiracy theorists. Times like this are when people who weaponize those conspiracy theories do so. Pain and confusion are incredibly powerful tools. People are incredibly vulnerable when they are in pain or when they are confused. Most people will do whatever they can to no longer be in pain or be confused. Regardless of what the lifeline is, they'll grab it. So just be aware of what lifelines you're grabbing onto right now. Take in the facts, but take them as they are. Don't just take in facts to align with something you already believe. So the online leftist said that voting for Kamala wasn't going to help anybody and that the end-all be-all answer was community organizing. So why are they all on TikTok weighing in on discourse instead of community organizing? Either they know community organizing isn't the catch-all answer they pretended it was, or they're expecting everybody else to get up and do the work for them. You said that it wouldn't matter if we voted for Kamala, despite the fact that under her it would be immensely easier to access gender-affirming care. Now Trump won and we know he's going to try and ban it. So why are you sitting on your ass? You said you knew the answer was community organizing. What are you doing to organize and try and get access and stockpile those gender-affirming meds and care for trans people once it's banned? Why are you weighing in on discourse when you have a platform of 150,000 people instead of using it to organize? But no, you're too busy fighting on the internet. You said it didn't matter who was in office, they're all the same. So why are you still in New York City instead of packing up to do the groundwork in a red state? Oh, because it does matter that you live in a blue state. Because it does matter who's in office. Either you knew the entire time that it mattered, or you really do think community is the catch-all answer and you have no interest in doing any of the work, which just makes you a shitty person.
There's a lot of things over the last couple of months and weeks I haven't said because, quite honestly, I know I'm not like a political pundit person. I have politics in my work and what I do. And even from last year, a video I did talked about how like we have a big issue with having media that is radical or has radical politics, but the casual viewer not getting it and dealing with it. And then you see things like these book talk people who are like, I don't want politics in my book talk. If that's how you feel, you should return every copy of the Hunger Games that you own. If you feel that way, even though I don't even fuck with that series anymore, you should return all your Harry Potter books. If you feel that way, you should return The Giver, The Witcher books if you're reading that, Poppy Wars, Babel. You should return all them bitches because clearly you don't even know what you're consuming. You should throw them shits away, actually. You should get rid of Star Wars. If you like Star Wars, throw that shit away. Star Trek, get rid of that shit too. Avatar, most anime. If you're a One Piece fan, you should just hang it up flat screen. Like all this shit, you should just go away. You should really just stop. And it's so frustrating. And I feel like I had debated talking about this because I didn't want to feel like I was beating a dead horse. But I'm just going to say it now. And then we'll see where the thing flies. When I think about the fact that when people were saying to not buy the Wizard Turf game, because doing that would be like a brand boon for that franchise and therefore be a brand boon to the creator of that franchise, Noted Turf, right? And people were saying that. People would say, oh, what about this? People would explain that. People would say, oh, well, like, but I really love this is my comfort thing. People say, well, like, when we're talking about trans issues, and they're like, well, I'll do this, I'll do that. It's always this compromise that they want to make in their minds about, like, yes, what I'm doing is wrong in a certain degree, but I like it. I don't think I'm actually harming anyone, even though people have explained it to me. Like, it's so funny when I'll see comments about like, well, what did JKR do? And it's like, even if in good faith you give them every single essay and article that's been out since, 2019, they still are like, but then aren't women really women? So it's like, so you're just transphobic. So just say that and go away. Why do you keep wanting to have this back and forth? Just own your shit. The snakes in the grassness of it is really what gets me. Like, live your truth, dog. Everyone like, I'm telling my truth. You wanna have every interaction, every parasocial, interpersonal conflict you want to put online? Own your snake in the grassness. Stop trying to act like, shock. What do you mean transphobia? Like, every piece of lore, who Theo Knott is, but you don't know why J.K. Rowling's considered a transphobe? It's 2024. People have been finding ways to, like, deal with their comfort. Like, when I tell people that I've never had Chick-fil-A, they look at me like, oh, for real? Like, I was like, and here's the thing, I get it. There are many things I know I could also not be producing. Like, I know I use Amazon. I absolutely accept that. I use it mostly for work stuff, but I get it. I own that L. And everyone kind of understands that. But when I say I haven't eaten at Chick-fil-A, people look at me mad weird. They're like, oh man, it's so good. You're, good for you, but like, you're missing out. I'm like, I don't feel I'm missing out on shit, dog. Like, but the fact that when I say that, just is like a passing statement. I don't grant eyes. People are like, oh, you want to go Chick-fil-A? I'm like, I don't eat at Chick-fil-A. But the funniest thing is that I'll say that, and they will know why I don't eat at Chick-fil-A. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to go on no bandwagon. I don't have to do any, virtue signaling. But they'll know why and be like, okay, I understand. It's like, so if you understand all of that I don't even have to explain it to you, isn't that an issue in and of itself? Like, I've never talked to someone who says that, oh, I've canceled my Amazon subscription because of Bezos, and been like, yeah, I get it. I will be like, you're so right. Like, I want to be able to do that. I'm trying to buy less from there. I don't do this. Like, I talk about, like, what I'm also doing to, like, reach their praxis. I'm not like, but girl, that 2-day delivery. Like, I don't know. I just have, like, all these rambles and frustration. And it's like, you know, the amount of misinformation and the way that just, like, virtue signaling has become, like, a big thing. All these Jubilee clips making everyone want to be, like, a fucking debate pervert. Like, I'm so tired. I'm just gonna finish watching Yakuza Fiance, but, like, just had that, like, in my chest. I had to get it out because I'm just annoyed. Between that, these fucking all day, everyday fucking verses, I'm just, like, I've had it up to here. And I have to record. And I feel puffy. I feel gross. I haven't eaten. I'm tired. I have things to do. I have writing to do. I was actually making momentum on my goddamn nonfiction and fiction for once. And all I want to do now is just curl up and sleep and play Baldur's Gate. But I have to keep going because I just, even just for myself, and I had a whole argument, like, it's just, this timeline sucks. So, I hate that I came up with this to talk about right after I turned off my actual good ring light and recording stuff, but one thing I think we have to sit with is we're seeing, like, all of these very, like, xenophobic and, like, reactionary takes is the fact that a lot of the policies that have led to what we were dealing with in with mass incarceration and those kind of issues and drug laws, a lot of those things were signed and campaigned for with the approval of our grandparents and our parents. Like, a lot of our elders really let us down that way. And even those who vote Democrat, will still be afraid of crime statistics, especially if they watch the news all the time, or, you know, even before CNN. I remember when I was younger, I would just go to bed at night and I couldn't sleep, so I'd put on 10 o'clock news on, always about people getting shot, people getting murdered, and that activates people. And it activates older people who are afraid, including other Black people. And I think it's very important to remember that, like, we are not a pure monolith. You know, we are no one group is inherently pure and above being propagandized. I remember I made a video maybe, like, almost 2 years ago about, like, Al Sharpton and, like, how he went from being, like, considered a serious person to, like, a total joke. And a part of the things I had to, like, read about was just, like, at that period, a lot of elders really felt like they should be getting these thugs off the streets. And so they were in favor of a lot of crime bills and things that helped lead to the mass incarceration that the next generation, and that even then younger Black men, had to deal with. And that was a generational harm that was done feeling like it would be a good thing without understanding fully the consequences of their actions. And I feel like that's a part of the narrative that we have to discuss, that we can, in fact, do harm to each other when we're acting reactionary.
So 3 days ago, somebody posted Superman, with Supergirl. But
if I could make a list of everyone I wanted to send to hell, people who think Superman is a Republican and or a fascist would be very high on that list. Not the top. I'm going to say the top spot for, like, IRL issues, but on a personal note, people who think that about Superman, and to a degree, Cyclops, aka Scott Summers, they'd be very high on that list. Very high.
So I believe voted red, that way you can unfollow them. I feel like dividing the book community over politics does not make any sense.
I really wanted to respond to this video. No hate to this creator, but I was motivated to say something because I feel like what frustrates me about this conversation is that it ignores the fact that many people do the work of trying to educate and inform people about the political issues going on in their favorite works, in their favorite book series, with their authors. And very often we are met with responses of, I want to turn my brain off. I don't want to care about these issues. I don't want to deal with that. And so for many of us, at this point, we're tired of always having to do that. Now, I, as someone who's been a social media creator, I do pop culture analysis on my YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. I have opted into doing this work, and I am okay overall with having explainers, being patient. I usually do meet people in good faith. At the same time, we cannot pretend that for the past 10 or so years, we have watched this platform, Book Talk, platform books written by authors who multiple people have come out and said have done racist things, have done anti-Islamic things, who have promoted genocide through their passive endorsement of Zionism. So I don't know why my screen is doing that. Where was it? Who have taken histories that don't belong to them and appropriate them into cozy fantasy and try to have very nuanced discussions about these things. Telling people that, if you like this author and you appreciate this author, okay, but this is the larger conversation as well. And being totally rejected by that. The amount of people who when you bring up J.K. Rowling's transphobia will be like, what transphobia? It's 2024. Multiple giant YouTubers would have made content. There are content creators on here who have made plenty of information about why supporting J.K. Rowling is problematic. If you are on Book Talk, if you are a constant scroller and you don't know what that is about, you are not informing yourself. And at a certain point, there needs to be accountability for the fact that you are choosing not to inform yourself and then putting yourself on a public platform to have fun with people, but you then are choosing to be in community with a broad group of people. And if you are going to support people who have been seen to be transphobic, to be ableist, racist, etc., and you can't take criticism about that or criticism about you actively supporting them or liking the book, then that is an issue that you need to deal with. And I really need these people, including this creator, and I mean this empathetically, to understand that we are not just talking about politics. We're not just talking about the economy. We're not just talking about, immigration. We're not just talking about these in broad ways. The Project 2025 has highlighted very specific things that it wants to implement in order to do significant harm to multiple communities. That is the issue we're talking about here. You are asking those of us who are going to be at the end of that marginalization to grit our teeth and just reach across the aisle when there are groups of people on the other side of that aisle who either do not care about those issues because they care more about the economy, or they do know they don't take it seriously and make fun of us for taking it seriously, or they believe in those things. Where are we supposed to meet them in the middle? If you think that trans people playing sports is a risk, that trans people are a risk if they go into the bathroom, where am I supposed to meet you? Where is our book politics supposed to make up for the fact that you treat members of our collective community like second-class citizens? And even when it comes to discussing things within Book Talk about popular titles, we have had people come in here and explain why, certain things in, even getting away from the issue with Sarah J. Maas with even the Breonna Taylor situation, the racism surrounding that situation, talking about the way in which the map that she has in her book is problematic when it comes to anti-Irish sentiment. People don't want to hear it. People don't want to talk about it. When we want to have these nuanced discussions, there are so many people who don't want to engage with it, don't want to talk about it. But now you want to be in community as well. You want to get our clicks and our likes. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot be a part of communities that are queer, that are pro-women, that are pro-choice, that are pro-integration, that are pro-diversity, and then vote for a ticket that has things on it that will perpetuate those things. I don't understand why this is not clicking. And again, this community has not made itself open to having those nuanced conversations. It has not made itself open to reaching across the aisle. Every time, especially if a Black critic says something about race or ethnicity, or about dissecting a text in a more, interesting way, a more nuanced way, a more academic way, or even just not an academic way, of just thinking about the book, they are met with responses of, I'd like to turn my brain off. And now the response to that turning your brain off is people not having critical reading skills when it comes to actual policy. If you are not being able to, if you are a critical reader, you can turn your brain off. If you're not a critical reader at all, and that's what you carry throughout your entire existence, that's how we end up in this situation. Because you cannot tell me that you guys are reading 50, 100 books a year by all these different kind of authors, and you have absolutely no understanding of why these communities wouldn't want you around. No understanding at all. And what's more, many of us have gone out of our way to defend Book Talk from proclamations of anti-intellectualism, of defending them against the smut accusations about people just reading smut and having no nugget. Like, I have defended that because I feel like there is definitely nuances to that. And the reality is that the Book Talk community, when it perpetuates things like this, like just reach across the elbow sides, don't care about politics stuff, it betrays us, who gave them grace, who gave them the grace of being able to hold two things at the same time. And yes, you can say that's an echo chamber on our hands, but the echo chamber exists regardless. The echo chamber is, I have people in my For You feed who read Fourth Wing, and I don't like that books of the politics of the author. I haven't deleted them because they have other nuanced thoughts. They are critical thinkers. We can do that when that is happening. But when you are just completely ignoring everything else and then trying to say like we should be a community, you've already betrayed us. And to be quite honest, I doubt they ever really earned that kind of grace anyway. But when you politically believe in that, you try to give it. And finally, the last thing I'll say is that it's important to understand that because Book Talk is now a brand, a publication tool, something that comes up on television shows, and people can, become self-proclaimed fucking monarchs of the whole fucking hashtag, that this is also about capitalism. People want to make money, want to get views on their work, and they are seeing potential revenue cuts in what they're going to do. And I'm sorry, I'm not giving you my views so that I can hear your half-baked reasoning about why you voted for Trump. I already know why. I have people in real life that I have to deal with that have bad politics. I do not need to come online when I'm trying to have a good time and get AO3 recommendations dealing with that. I absolutely don't have to. I do not have to do that. And I think that the grace that people want to give for the people on the other side of the political aisle who have actively voted for a president who has people in his cabinet who want to do substantial harm to millions of people, the fact that you can give them more grace than the people who are really terrified and afraid of their rights being taken away from them is something that you guys have to sit with. Because why am I the bad guy when I'm saying I don't think I want to be in alignment with people who would potentially vote to get rid of marriage laws that impact Black and brown people and queer people? Why would I be aligned with people who think to a certain level that women shouldn't vote, who want to have, Christianity, evangelical Christianity, be the basis of laws and regulations about my body and the body of others when I am a full ass pagan? No. I do not understand why we have to compromise with people who actively want to dominate our lives, whether they know it or not.